Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything that revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Tuesday being People's Poll Day. James, let's just get straight into it. What were the options? What won? And let's chat about
Post vote. There were loads of votes on this one, actually. There were three options for you. One was the new takeover of Southampton Football Club, which is a very interesting link in Rasmus Ankersen, who was formerly at Brentford. Some speculation that Southampton might be about to go down this kind of Moneyball route in terms of buying players undervalued and selling players at higher than their value. I think it's promising news for Southampton to give summary, and I'm sure we'll revisit this at some point. As we will probably, the other topic that didn't win in the vote was fantasy football's relationship on mental health, which I know a lot of people obviously wanted us to cover. It's been quite widely reported in the press over the last week or so that it's potentially having a negative impact on people. But then that's the sensational headline, isn't it? No one speaks about, does it have positive benefits on people's mental health? Probably doesn't feel like it during this kind of COVID postponement season. But there's plenty of good in fantasy football. And I did want to kind of look at it from both sides as well. Obviously, just on that, DMs, it's a podcast, so just phone's going off. What a surprise.
It is.
DMs always open. If you're ever struggling mentally due to fantasy football or anything, my DMs are always open. But the winning topic of the vote is a look at what Premier League clubs might be trying to do during this January transfer window. Where would you like to start, Suj?
I was going to start, James, by saying, should we start with our own clubs? But also, our own clubs get so much more disproportionate airtime on our show anyway.
Good.
That whether or not we should start with our own clubs.
Fine, let's do it.
I feel like get them out of the way because I don't really want to overly talk about my own club, but we should.
So as I said on a few of the shows we've been doing, most probably our Tottenham podcast on Patreon, in honesty, Tottenham are looking for three types of player in this window. Looking for a centre-back, looking for a wing-back, and they're looking for an attacking player, be it a forward as a backup for Kane or another forward in kind of the Son Lucas mould.
Wide forward.
Basically, yeah. Someone, I mean, what you want to really do is buy someone else like Son, so that, wow, you really just spilled so badly, didn't you?
That was rubbish. If you are listening on the audio, you do need to head over to YouTube. I'm not even going to know what the timestamp is, but
quite early on in the podcast.
Yeah, like the 3 minutes or something.
I'm not sure if you got any of that in your mouth, mate.
But the lid was not properly on the cup. I think the cool kids call it fail. Anyway, you need a striker.
Yeah. Now, there's strong links which are growing and growing every day with Adama Traore of Wolves. It seems Wolves are happy to sell him, probably for a fee in kind of the 20 to 25 region, which is interesting, has merits considering Wolves were not prepared to accept anything less than 40 last summer, seems to be the understanding. But the general consensus from Wolves fans is he's not doing it. They're happy for him to go. Why do Tottenham want to buy him? Well, there's certainly merits to what Adama Traore brings. One of the things I like is that he occupies players. You cannot just leave him because he'll burn anybody for pace. Doesn't matter if you're quick, slow, strong, weak, doesn't matter. He'll burn you alive. Obviously, the final ball and the end product leaves a lot to be desired. But actually just his presence potentially giving space for people like Son and Kane is quite an attractive proposition to me. There is some thought process as well, though, that Tottenham are buying him as a wing-back if it does happen, which is interesting. Emerson, I think, has done okay, but there's been a lot of scrutiny on his delivery or lack of.
It's been average.
But defensively, he's not been too bad. And there is a thought that there's certain games where Emerson will be better for Tottenham, and there's certain games where you could probably use Traore as a wing-back and get on with it. Because one of the things he does is, right, teams have to defend deeper against him. Therefore, it gives more space to the creative players. Problem being that Tottenham don't really have any creative players at the moment. But it's beginning to look more and more likely that Traore will happen And it could be, there was large reports last week, although it's calmed down a little bit, that Matt Doherty may go the other way back to Wolves.
Yep.
I know Tottenham are definitely looking for a centre-back, and I'd be surprised if the window shuts and Tottenham don't do some business for a centre-back, because it's a bit threadbare. I think Tottenham have seen that recently with, obviously, Romero's been out injured for a couple of months. He's due to return, and that will offer real competition. But beyond the comeback three who's been playing, Davis, Dyer and Sanchez, it's been a problem if any of them have been missing. We saw that particularly at Chelsea in the Carabao Cup at the weekend, last midweek, sorry. Tanganga didn't play well. He lost his man from the corner against Morecambe at the weekend. Joe Rodon, who people keep saying, why is he not playing? Why is he not playing? Well, unfortunately, every time I watch him, I'm becoming less and less convinced by him. He didn't play well against Morecambe at the weekend either. So centre-back's a priority. And a forward, if possible, can be done, but it's probably dependent on outgoings.
So Ndombele out.
So with
Dele Alli
Tottenham,
out,
as ever seems to be the case, it seems to be sell to buy rather than buy to sell. So what Tottenham's budget is, despite the fact we know, and we investigated this 2 months ago, Tottenham could blow smoke up in a transfer window, but won't, partly because of the long-standing debt over the stadium and stuff. But in theory, they could go and spend a shitload, but won't. Bergwijn
on his way out.
Yeah, a 15 million pound bid has been rejected from Ajax.
I don't want to sound like a poking, but generally your transfer business, I mean, we've got a shit history in the transfer window. This is not, people in glass houses shouldn't fucking throw stones, because the Hallas and Felipe Andersons of the world are just as crap. But Lo Celso can't get minutes.
Ashton Allen's firing, mate, by the way.
And Ndombele's not happening. Bergwijn, you're going to let go now as well. Rodon, not good enough. Honestly, like, if you look at your list of signings over the recent months, who's made it that's been any good? Romero.
So recent years.
Years. Romero, just about. But again, I don't think we've seen enough from him to say that he's been amazing. Reggie's not been too bad. But other than that, there's not anyone that's been game-changing. Højbjerg. I mean, Højbjerg
to be honest,
is the most reliable.
Well, I was going to say, actually, Højbjerg was a good signing for 15 million, as much as I criticise him.
I suppose it is harder, like, because we struggle. When we spend 40s and 50s from Europe on players, it's never worked. And it's the same for you, like the Lo Celsos of the world. Even Brian Hill coming in. I mean, he's one for the future, but even you'd expect him to be able to offer something in the Carabao Cup. So, yeah.
Obviously, now you've got a manager in who obviously really wants to play a back three. So there's certain players who are just not going to fit into that now.
No.
He's been looking at Bergwijn as kind of the striker backup, and he's obviously not been convinced with what he's seen. I think, like, he's never going to be a first choice player. No. Never going to be first choice. And Tottenham don't have many sellable assets. You mentioned, obviously, Tanguy and Ndombele, Dele Alli. Spurs are going to really struggle to get rid of these players because of the wages are on. And Ndombele's on about 200 grand a week, right?
Ouch.
Dele, who's going to invest, unfortunately, right? So you're probably looking at those two players going out on loan. I wouldn't say both now, but possibly one probably going out on loan. You're not going to get the transfer money for those players at the moment. Cannot see that at all, unless Tottenham can do like a swap deal with someone overseas for Ndombele is a possibility. Like Tottenham being strongly linked with Frank Kessie, who's out of contracts in the summer, midfielder who plays for AC Milan. And there's some thought that you could get him now for about 10 million. But it's more likely to be at the end of the season. But it's believed Tottenham have potentially gone back to AC Milan and said, we'll take Kessie now if you want to give us like 25 million for a Ndombele or something. AC Milan again, you're a drugs. I don't think so. You know, Tottenham will try these sort of things. Looks like Bergwijn will probably go. That certainly opens up the space, because one other problem that Tottenham really have, and this will affect a number of clubs as well, Tottenham need to get rid of some overseas players before they can get some more overseas players in, because the quota of foreign players allowed within the 25-man squad is kind of right at the brink. So you can't just, you might buy a player and they might not be able to register them, right? Which is a bit of a mare. Obviously, there's players that are expendable if there's good offers come in. I think Japhet Tanganga, Joe Rodon, I think they would be expendable if good offers come in. The only players in the squad I could say is definitely not sellable at the moment, probably Kane's son, But again, they'll have a price if something ridiculous was to come in, although won't in this window. Don't think the club would have any interest in selling Oliver Skipp or Eric Dyer at the moment. There's obviously hope that Hugo Lloris's contract is up in the summer. So if something's not agreed soon, then Tottenham will obviously be looking for a goalkeeper. But the general thought is that Lloris will sign for another year.
Fair play. Not many outgoings at my place. I don't see anyone leaving, to be honest with you. Maybe Masuaku, but Moyes likes him as a backup. So I think Masuaku is not particularly likely. Maybe Ryan Fredericks. Again, but if these guys are moving on,
shout out
no
for
one
Rapid
cares.
listeners.
Yeah, no one really it's not going to affect us in any way, shape or form. Moyes has come out in the press and said that we want to change the way that West Ham do their business, which is not have everything leaked in public now. So that either means you're not hearing anything because, we're trying to do business in public, or they're actually not making any effort to buy anybody. But no, I think at West Ham, the needs are pretty obvious. We could do with centre-back cover, even though Zuma may be back before the end of the month. I've heard, obviously, Tarkovsky. I think we put 8.5 million in already for him. I've heard Rob Dickey at QPR has been on the list of potential centre-backs that we've wanted for a while. So we'll see what happens there. We're definitely going to need a defensive, another midfielder.
Diop's been linked with Newcastle, wasn't he? But
yeah,
I mean, Newcastle will get linked with literally everybody at night. Any agent, this is worth remembering, would probably for the Newcastle fans who are hearing different links every day. Any agent who's trying to get a better deal or sell their client is going to mention Newcastle United at the moment.
I don't mind Diop leaving, to be honest with you. It'd leave us light on numbers, but long term, he hasn't torn it up since he's come. He's a right player, but he's not going to keep us in the top 6 or pushing for top 4. Definitely need another midfielder. Noble's only got obviously 6 months left, and Rice in the summer, you never know, if a big offer came in, he could potentially go, but we're going to need another midfielder. And of course, we need at least 3 or 4 attacking midfielders because we don't have enough options in that space, James.
And you keep getting linked with forwards, don't you?
Yeah, Antonio obviously signed a new contract and then came out and said it'd be good if we signed another striker for competition, which is refreshing to hear. He put a shift in on Sunday. I was impressed with him, but we definitely need a forward. We're getting linked with all sorts of forwards. Gabby Gold in South America, but he's not.
Gabriel Barbosa, is it?
We ain't paying the money for that.
Okay.
And all sorts of names keep popping up. The one that I really don't think will happen is Jesse Lingard. I don't see him coming back now. And the reason being that the clubs know each other. We've done business before.
Why hasn't it done?
Yeah, if it's not like there's obstacles and bottlenecks to getting it done, other than we don't want to pay what they're looking for, or he was potentially looking for something better elsewhere. I feel like if he's had a real desire to want to come and we had a desire to make it happen, because of the previous year's experience, it would have just got done, and it hasn't. So I don't know if that one is actually going to happen, to be honest with you.
No,
but we do need some bodies, not necessarily just for the rest of this season, but longer term, start building up the depth in the squad. But Vlasic played well. I mean, he's coming on slowly and surely as well. Yarmolenko may leave. Sorry, I should add that as well.
Would think Lingard would do such a brilliant job for 60% of the clubs in the Premier League at the moment. He'd go in, he'd be first choice and do absolutely great. It looks like he wants to stay at Manchester United. And actually watching them, I quite enjoyed that game last night. I quite enjoyed it, to be honest, because of the way Aston Villa played. Watching it again last night, you're thinking, why don't they use him? There's so many points in the game. You think United are there's no energy in them. And there's one thing Lingard does, right? And I spoke to you before. I think he's an absolutely outstanding defensive number 10. So surprised they haven't used him more. Maybe I think he'd work in like any Ralph Rangnick system, actually. Maybe he'll get more minutes. Perhaps that's what he's thinking himself. I'll tell you one name to keep an eye out for, Suj. I'm not saying specifically for West Ham. It's Ben Brereton Diaz of Blackburn Rovers.
Yeah, we were in for him, but I don't know if that's going to happen. He's been doing well at Blackburn.
There'll be I reckon he's a name that's going to come up a lot over the next couple of weeks or so. There's a number of clubs could do with a player like that. I think even though Palace look like they probably stopped in that area of been linked, He certainly wouldn't go to Burnley, but they're potentially going to be looking for a forward. Newcastle, I say Blackburn wouldn't sell to Burnley is the point. Newcastle were definitely looking for a forward. And bearing in mind, it's someone that's probably going to need to cover Callum Wilson for 6 to 8 weeks and then be competition to either play with or take his place. Diaz could fit the bill, actually. The issue with that is, of course, Blackburn are second now in the Championship. Been on an absolutely outstanding run. I think they've played a few more games than Fulham, admittedly, but they're right in contention for promotion under Tony Mowbray. You think he would stick it out and try and stay and then get into the Premier League with the club. Obviously, if they miss out, then move in the summer. But I think you'll hear his name mentioned a lot, because I think the suspicion still is that, unlike other clubs pushing for promotion, if Blackburn get an offer which they can't refuse, they will still sell the player. That's the thinking at the moment. So that's why he's getting heavily linked with a number of places. He's going to be a popular name in the old transfer blogs over the next couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's look at some of the other clubs, because like I mentioned, we're going to talk too much about our clubs, and we have for 15 minutes.
There's a shock.
Let's talk about, let's wrap up the big six, shall we, in terms of the other big six. You can't see much happening at many, really.
No, I think we can probably skim them quite quickly, actually.
Yeah.
In City's case, money is down.
Maitland-Niles has gone to Roma from Arsenal.
Right, you want to do Arsenal first? Let's do Arsenal first.
Well, they're the most likely to do anything, maybe, or at least outgoings.
Well, some potential outgoings. Yeah, was he on 350 grand a week or something? 18 months left on his contract. If Arsenal can kill it, they'll kill it, won't they? So
yeah,
I'm still suspicious that he might end up at Newcastle. I just feel like
I think so too.
It's a short-term fix that might just work for everybody. But does Aubameyang himself want to go and do a relegation fight? It's a fall from grace, isn't it? Admittedly, you're joining the biggest club in the world, but it's short-term, isn't it? For Aubameyang, by the time Newcastle are in a position to win trophies, they're going to have replaced him with someone else, aren't they? Yeah. So does Aubameyang want to go and do that? I'm not convinced, actually. And he might be quite happy with his cushy 350 grand a week at Arsenal and try and fight to win his place back. He's underwhelmed for so long for Arsenal. It's really surprising. He's obviously at AFCON at the moment. Does that potentially, that obviously makes transfers difficult. Trying to sell a player who's in a different continent for the majority of the month. He could obviously be back before the window closes. If he's not, I suspect he might stay an Arsenal player. But they're looking to move him on. As you said, Maitland-Niles has gone on loan to Roma, which I'm really surprised about, actually, just purely because Partey's obviously at AFCON. So in the midfield area at the moment, I've kind of got Xhaka and Lokonga, which is fine, but it's a little bit threadbare at the moment. If something suddenly happens to Xhaka, it feels like they're really short this month. And obviously, it's got the North London derby at the weekend. I'm surprised that Arsenal let Maitland-Niles go to Roma on loan prior to the North London derby. It might be a sign that they potentially have an incoming in that area, but wouldn't think so. I think defensively, they fixed a lot of problems with Ben White, Tomiyasu, Ramsdale's kind of made that look a lot stronger. Obviously, if Aubameyang goes, they certainly need to buy a centre forward. Not necessarily this month, because I think, yes, they've got Lacazette, they've got Nketiah, who's obviously out of contract in the summer. But I think the likes of Martinelli could play that role. So I don't think they're as light as they look, but also none of them players make you feel like they're going to go and get 12 goals between now and the end of the season and make sure Arsenal finish fourth, for example. So if they can get a forward in, they will. The one they're being heavily linked with, and so are Tottenham quite a bit, and so Manchester City's Dusan Vlahovic of Fiorentina, who's the next kind of big forward player you're going to hear a lot about. But Fiorentina supposedly want a fee that's going to be around about 75 million. Now, I just don't see that sort of transfer happening.
It's not a January transfer window transfer anyway. I could see it in the summer, but I don't think that kind of money generally floats around in.
It does look like that Vlahovic is going to end up in the Premier League.
Yeah, agree.
The only team that seems to be really strongly interested in him outside the Premier League appears to be Juventus.
Right.
Fiorentina kind of have got the Tottenham stance at the moment of don't want to sell to another club within the same league, basically. So it looks like he will end up coming here. I don't think it's going to be till the summer. And obviously, if that's who Manchester City decide they want, everyone else can obviously forget about it. But otherwise, it looks like Arsenal, Tottenham in the running. Come the summer, He might even be one that Newcastle look at, if they stay up.
What's your thoughts around Aston Villa? I find
what they got to do with the big six?
We're moving it. Who else is buying anything with the big six? So move on from.
Well, we'll just scan Liverpool. We don't think are going to do any business. They've been strongly linked with Diaz, who's a winger at Porto. Porto won about 60 million for him. I can't see Liverpool spending that sort of money. January. No, United obviously need a central midfielder. It's very well known, but they're probably not going to get what they want till the summer. They also want another centre back. If they do any business this window, I think it will be young players for the future. And Chelsea have excess money, it's worth saying, and keeping an eye on, because they obviously had budget set aside to buy Jules Koundé from Seville, which didn't happen. They could revive that, but I'm sure Koundé probably wants to stay with Seville for their next inevitable Europa League win in May.
No.
Yeah, I know you're in that competition. So is some other club called Barcelona and Borussia Dortmund and other stuff as well. If Seville were in it, Seville will. If Seville were in it, Seville will win it. Just forget about it, mate.
It's like City and the League Cup. You know how it goes. Oh no, we beat them.
Okay. I see what you did there. You're very clever. Chelsea have obviously got a few players out of contract. Antonio Rudiger, Andreas Christensen, Thiago Silva has signed on again. Rudiger's being offered obviously he can talk to overseas club now.
Yeah, that's the rules, isn't it?
He's being offered like reportedly 500 grand a week and stuff like that.
It's crazy money. The thing with Rudiger, the rules being that you can sign a pre-contract with an overseas club, just not with a domestic club.
That's correct. Yeah. So
if he was going to move to another UK club, then it's not going to happen because we're not going to know about it in this window. But the likelihood is the Dortmunds of the world, the Reals of the world, they all want a piece of.
Rudiger's not going to end up rocking up at Man City or Liverpool.
No,
if he leaves Chelsea, he'll go abroad. Yeah.
But if he stays in the UK, he'll extend with Chelsea.
But it certainly means they're on the lookout for a centre back. Now, the other thing they're obviously looking at, and they might look at very short term, is a left wing back. I think a few of us were putting the kind of 1+1 Luca Dean on loan theory in there, although it very much looks like Dean's obviously going to go to Villa. So it leaves them with Reece James injured, Marcus Alonso the only available left wing back because of Ben Chilwell's injury, leaves them a little bit light in the wing back positions at the moment. Now the right hand side's not too much of a problem. Reece James is obviously not going to miss the whole rest of the season. We've seen Azpilicueta, Hudson-Odoi, Christian Pulisic. They have used players out there who can cover. Do they just want Alonso from now to the end of the season with a potential title race, although it looks adrift at the moment, admittedly, and obviously the Champions League resuming and 2 domestic cup competitions to try and win as well? So I think Chelsea will try and do something at left wing back position. There is some talk, Emerson Palmieri is on loan, I think, at Lyon. And there is some talk of Chelsea perhaps paying some money to Lyon to actually get him back till the end of the season, rather than invest in a player they may not necessarily want longer term in January. It's a repetitive theme, right? That's the problem with this window. How many clubs are going to get what they really want in this window? It's more of a market for those struggling at the other end, isn't it?
Yeah, I would agree. I mentioned Villa when we're going to move away from the big six. I look at them with, I don't want to say a little bit of jealousy at the moment. Almost.
They're doing bits, aren't they?
The managers come in, they're full of energy, seem to have a playing style, young talent coming through, but also in and around the transfer window, they are active. I mean, picking up Luca Dean when I thought he'd end up at
it's
Chelsea
not official
West
yet,
Ham.
It's worth saying.
No,
but it looks like it's going to be.
Ahead of Newcastle, West Ham, Chelsea. That's a decent bit of business that they've done there in Aston Villa. So, yeah, I think Villa are quietly chugging away, doing well, building a good squad there.
It's going to be fascinating to see how Coutinho gets on, because those of us who remember watching him at Liverpool know what a baller he's been. Those who've watched him a lot at Barcelona the last couple of years say that player doesn't exist anymore. So it's going to be fascinating to see how he gets on. I'm pretty convinced he'll do very well, actually. I've no idea what sort of role he's going to pick up, whether he's going to be part of a midfield three, whether he's going to play in a front three, whether they're going to change system. I think one of the beauties of Coutinho is a multi-use player. Doesn't mean that if Dean does come, doesn't mean Villa's business is done, by the way. There's strong reports that they're looking for another midfield player. And I think we knew that anyway from the summer with the bids for James Ward-Prowse, who I don't think is a player that Villa would be able to get hold of now. And obviously, Steven Gerrard may have other interests in players. It's been linked strongly with Glenn Kamara of Rangers, isn't he? Who's a player who obviously knows well. Who's some thought he might even look back at Joe Rebo. I think I'd said to you on one of the pods recently, Suj been doing really well for Rangers up north. So he obviously knows that squad. So he thinks the player's good enough to come and play for Villa. If they buy, the player's going to look at the Premier League and go, okay, manager rates me as well. He's going to go, isn't he? So I think Kamara at Rangers might be one to keep an eye on, maybe that Villa might revisit. I'm not sure their business is done. I don't think there'd be any outgoings either for them. It's been Wesley's gone on loan, and Keenan Davis obviously played for Forest against Arsenal at the weekends, obviously gone out on loan as well. But I think you have to remember in the summer, they got all the Grealish money, right? So the three players they got in, they leveled the book. So they had money available to buy anyway. And not stupid amounts of money, but certainly enough to invest. And Villa might not be done yet, actually.
And a club that are at risk of going down because they are right near the bottom, but historically don't spend a lot of money, are Burnley. But I think the Burnley are at risk of the opposite more than anything else, which is players getting bought with that relegation as a threat.
Well,
Tarkowski out of contract.
Tarkowski, it's well known, out of contract. If he goes now, you would think most likely destination is probably Newcastle or West Ham, as obviously you said, do hold a long-standing interest. I'd be surprised if another Premier League club suddenly emerged for James Tarkowski.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised. Although actually, there's reports Axel Twanzabi's loan with Villa is going to be cut off, and I don't know if Steven Gerrard wants a new centre-back or not. If you can hear my wife sneezing or think you heard my wife sneezing, you did just hear my wife sneeze. Burnley don't look to me like they're going to spend the money. I had a look into kind of local press reports, and it looks like Sean Dyche has a desire for an attacking midfielder at the moment and also a forward. Now, it's also conflicting with the fact there have been some reports over the last 48 hours or so. Nobody seems to know factually if this is definitely true or not. Chris Wood's been strongly linked with Newcastle now. Now, again, everyone's going to get linked with Newcastle at the moment who could be moving. But it's believed that Chris Wood does have a release clause. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, I can understand the Tarkowski one because they need the money. Surely Burnley wouldn't sell Chris Wood to exact rival at the moment in Newcastle in terms of trying to stay up. If Newcastle activate a release clause, nothing Burnley could do about it if that release clause exists. And obviously, I've not even put together a figure to say it's 30 million release clause. No one seems to know. This is something that's just popped up in a few reports over the last 48 hours or so. So, I mean, if Chris Wood goes, Burnley really, they've got to buy some players. And the exact right profile fit for them would be like Brereton Diaz at the moment. There's no way Blackburn won't sell to Burnley. And
I can't see him wanting to go there with the risk of going from the Championship to the Premier League back to the Championship as well. Everton have no money. We've done pods on why they're absolutely skint and can't and shouldn't be buying anybody. And yet they were straight out of the gates picking up the Ukrainian left back, Mikalenko.
Vitaly Mikalenko, yeah.
Mikalenko, and obviously Patterson came in from Rangers as well. Mikalenko is clearly, Luca Dini is gone, so they did need to replace him, and Patterson's one for the future as well. I mean, Seamus Coleman's getting on a bit.
Well, we worked out that Everton were about 5 million in red. And so people will obviously quickly ask me, hang on, Everton are going mad. They bought Patterson and Mikalenko, what's going on? And my answer was, well, they'll sell Luca Dini and that will balance out those two signings. And I suspect that one of Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison or both will leave in the summer. I don't think they would leave now. I've said this to you before, Suj, and actually Adam Pritchard at 35 who backed me up on this, and he said, yeah, I've heard this as a strong whisper as well, of Calvert-Lewin going to Arsenal in the summer. I just think that works for
everybody.
Doesn't work for Everton selling their full, but it will balance what they need to balance. They'll get a massive amount of money for him, particularly
50, 60,
homegrown
60?
As well.
I think somewhere between 50 and 60s. Really. They paid 50 for Ben White.
I think it'd be more nearer the 60 number because it's English. I wouldn't be surprised 60. If it's higher. You're buying Premier League proven, right? You know all the qualities of the player. You know he can do it in the league. He's arguably backup number 9 to Harry Kane for England. So you know what you're getting. He might even be that he usurps Harry Kane in the next 3 or 4 years or so. So I could see that. The long and short of it is Everton are almost definitely going to sell one of those big assets, I think, in the summer. They're going to need to. And they must keep investing in, to be honest, the signings they've made. Mikalenko looks a real solid left back. I'm not sure he's necessarily suitable what I saw at the weekend to playing in a back 5. I think it's more about out and out left back rather than left wing back. The people watch Rangers. I mean, Patterson only started 6 times for him, but they go mental for him. So he's a good young up and coming talent. I was disappointed because I did watch that game Saturday night. I was disappointed not to get a proper look at him. But that's what Everton have got to do. We've got to go down the route of Brian, young, hungry, up and coming. They've got to go back down that route rather than wasting their money on 29-year-olds and stuff like that. Got to go back, buy young, build a new squad over a number of years. I'm not sure that the fans are particularly going to let the manager go and do that, but that's what they need to do. Other than that, incomings, I think they'll probably be done. The thing is, once Calvert-Lewin, they look light up front, but with Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison's fit, then that front three, with Gray's playing ever so well again, then just a decent front three.
Any other clubs at the bottom that you think could throw money? Leeds, Norwich, throw money at trying to stay up? I don't think Norwich will.
Neither of them, definitely not. Leeds apparently really tight on the finances. Norwich similarly. Norwich is worth remembering. It doesn't feel like it, but they did spend money in the summer. It sounds like they're not going to. Now, it doesn't mean, particularly in Norwich's case, doesn't mean that they might not get, say, 2 or 3 loans in. It's a possibility. Leeds, I don't know if they're going to do anything, which with Bamford apparently has had another setback. Apparently he was going to play against you on Sunday and had another setback. So he's a concern. Calvin Phillips has obviously still got a couple of months to go before he returns. And they're in danger, right? Looking over their shoulder. They've got, after they've got Newcastle at home. After that, they've got some tougher fixtures, and suddenly they could be looking over their shoulder quickly. I say to you what I always say to you, if they've got all their players fit, it's not really a problem here. But the amount of injuries they have in the squad at the moment, I'm surprised they're not looking to do anything.
Crystal Palace did a lot of business in the summer, good business as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So I feel like they're at a state where there's no need to panic. There's no need to potentially fix any holes. They don't have any major injury issues. So they're not short in any particular area. You might say centre back, maybe they would want to strengthen a little bit. But apart from that, they're okay. I mean, it was what's their backup pairing? Tompkins would come in, I guess. If Gahey and Joachim Andersen,
they're in a much stronger position than they were in 6 months ago. Anyway,
of course,
I certainly assure you of that.
Yeah, I can't. I just see them thinking, what's the need to panic? Do good business in the summer rather than emergency.
They've obviously got a few players missing at the moment, like many clubs, because of AFCON and stuff. So that'll give them a kind of injection of like Zaha coming back in February and stuff like that. So no, I wouldn't see much business from Palace. Just note on Axel Tuanzebe. So just looking at a list of transfers that have already happened. He's gone to Napoli.
Oh, he has,
which I didn't realise.
Is that a loan or a permanent?
No, loan, yeah. So maybe Villa might look for a centre-back, not James Tompkins, by the way. No, I don't see Palace doing much business. And the same applies to a lot. When you look at Leicester at the moment, I mean, players have got injured. You look at them and think, get some players in, you can play a bloody game of football. But you get them players fit, it's actually quite a bloated squad, actually. Suddenly, once everyone's fit, they've got like 6 centre-backs and stuff. At the moment, they can't get one on the pitch. So don't see them doing a lot of business. We spoke about Brentford are looking for a right wing-back. Seems to be the feeling. Did I say Brighton or Brentford? I meant Brentford.
You said Brentford.
I meant Brentford. That's good, just as well. They're looking for a right wing back and they're looking for a forward, but more in terms of squad options rather than necessarily being automatic first teamers. They're not going to spend a lot of money. Brighton have spent 8 million on a Polish midfielder, a teenager, but he's not going to go into the first team straight away. Ideally, they'd want a forward, but they've been using Trossard out of position quite a lot this season. Probably, unless I wouldn't see him, Brereton, Diaz fitting their profile as much. So I don't really see them doing business. Haven't we spoken about Suj?
Well, it's the South Coast. Brighton and Southampton on the South Coast are the only others.
Southampton, no. I mean, Hassan Hoot has come out several times and said doesn't like January windows. And obviously he doesn't want players from postponed games to play against his team in the future. So that was a big suggestion that he's probably not going to do any other business. Ones to keep an eye on, Watford is the final team I think we haven't covered. I think we covered everyone else. They brought 4 players in, and I got to be honest, I need to do my investigation on them. So Marika Okoye from Sparta Rotterdam, Hassan Kamara from Nice, Samia from, affiliate club, Udinese, and Edo Kayemi from Eupen. I need to investigate these players. And be honest, I don't know a lot about them, but Watford have obviously got some players in the door who might be useful to them.
I mean, that's a rundown of the clubs and where we're at. I don't think it's going to be overly active, but there'll be bits and pieces of business being done.
No, the main headline this month is going to be Newcastle and what they do. I could only see of the clubs pushing for Europe. Wolves we didn't speak about just briefly.
Other than
Traore going, there's some fears that Ruben Neves might go in the summer. I'd be amazed if he went now. We've been aware for a while that the finances they're probably in a sell to buy position as well. Wolves at the moment, they're not going to go and start splashing the cash willy-nilly. I don't think. We've got like Pedro Neto to come back hopefully in the next couple of months. Will feel like a new signing for them, so don't really see them doing any business. More about Newcastle. The only way the big clubs or those pushing for European places really do the business, like I said, say if Tottenham suddenly can get like Ali and Ndombele's wages off the books, then they probably will go and buy a midfield player. But I think for many clubs at the moment, because of squad sizes, quotas, overseas players, difficult with buying players in January. I mean, Man United's need for a central midfielder is absolutely glaringly obvious, but they don't need to go and buy a £15 million Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, do they?
No.
They need to go and spend 100 million on a player from West Ham United, and that's not going to happen in January.
125, 130.
125 now, yeah. All right,
Every week that passes, I'm adding 2 million to the price tag. I mean, we all know it. That's like the. It's almost getting to the point where it's the magic silver bullet that's going to solve all of United's problems. I don't think it is, but 125 is a good start point.
Declan Rice to Manchester United, not for West Ham. I'm not trying to sell the player because I've done that before, and I've said I still think he'll end up at Chelsea actually. Although Chelsea's need with Jorginho, Kante, and Kovacic looks far less than Manchester United's, and it's because of that. Rice at United he really does look right.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure it's right for Rice.
No.
But he definitely would be right for Manchester United.
There we go. I mean, we'll revisit this as we do each and every week on the pods as transfers are coming in, not least because they'll start giving prices in FPL and that kind of thing. I think Coutinho is still a watch and wait. There's no one else.
Coutinho, it might even come by the time we release the podcast because he only physically got registered.
It should be like I think 6.5 maybe.
No, it'd be more than that, mate.
Then it's not worth it.
I think you'll be in the 7.5 region, to be honest. I think it's a balancing act between his historical. I remember having him nearly all season. I want to say maybe the 15, 16 or 16, 17 season. It was like 8 million. Like, oh yeah, it's brilliant for me. Obviously he's not playing for a team that's challenging for the top 4 at the moment. Also we were a little bit unsure if he's still got the same capabilities. He was never a player, Coutinho, who, although I say he did brilliantly for me, he's never been a player you thought, oh, he'll go and get 15 goals. Or it's more creation and stuff with him, isn't it, than goals. I mean, you said to me, oh, how many goals do you think you get between now and the end of the season? 3 or 4, to be honest. So, listen, if Villa have that treble game week, Suj, but we're out now, we can talk about it.
Yeah, incoming triple captain.
It's a possibility. No one said it's going to happen.
Triple captain Coutinho incoming.
No, we'd all go Ollie Watkins, mate, and we'd all be leaning on the bar by the end of it because, as seen again last night, Ollie Watkins loves a bar, mate.
Right, so that's it for this episode today. We'll be back at you tomorrow with Sky Fantasy Football. Don't forget you set your captains for tonight: Southampton, Brentford, and then obviously we've got West Ham, the Norwich tomorrow. So a full rundown of Sky Fantasy Football. We're edging closer and closer to the overhaul. Thursday, James, you're joined Clash of the Correspondents. Gary is my cap playing from Manchester United. And is it Matt? No.
No, smoking,
Southampton, is
mate.
it?
This is what happens when you guess shit.
Yeah.
Lee Jackson, Aston Villa, mate.
Yes, indeed. And actually, that would be great timing because Lee will be able to give his opinion on the new signings that they've got.
Considering madly that this schedule was put together pre-season, it's kind of worked out.
It has, yeah, serendipity. And of course, on Friday, what James and I will be doing is revealing what we would do if we were free hitting in game week 22. Spoiler, we're not likely to be, but you never know. So if you are on free hit,
there's a spate of postponements.
Exactly, we may be on that as well. So stay tuned wherever you are subscribed. If you're interested in joining our Patreon and Patreon additional content, which today includes a quiz, tomorrow a look at Gaffer.io if you're a Championship fan, and then Thursday Tottenham, patreon.com/Planet FPL. That's it then. Done for today.
Do you want me to put a dirty spoiler prediction for game week 22 in?
Yeah, go for it. No one listens to the last few minutes anyway.
Nah. There were 14 fixtures in game week 22. I think they will all take place.
Oh, and on that bombshell, ciao for now.
Ouch. Cue music, please, man child.